is your weakness? This question. What can you say about this question? This is probably the biggest ambush type question. It's a trap, because when you go down to a job interview, you're making a first impression, and you want to make, obviously, a good first impression. If you don't make a good first impression, chances are you won't be going much further in the process. So this question is the ultimate ambush question, where they try and get the dirt on you. We all want to present a very positive image of ourselves. We're awesome. We're the greatest employee who ever lived. We're the most wonderful person that you could ever hope for in a coworker, right? Now, recruiters and hiring managers in general aren't stupid, and they know that that's kind of a too good to be true facade. And so what they try and do is they try and peel away the layers and try and get you to reveal the real you, the true self. Tell us about the self. And this question is the king of these trick questions, where they're basically giving you the rope to hang yourself. They say, what are your weaknesses? Tell us your weaknesses. A good rephrasing of this question would be, if we were not going to hire you, what would be the reason for that? Now, as you can imagine, if you play right into this, you lose, because you've just handed them reasons on a plate to eliminate you. And if you understand the role of the recruiter, and in some cases the hiring manager, you're playing right into their hand. They are often interviewing several candidates, usually between 3 and 10, somewhere in there. And it's an elimination game for them. They have one job, and they have between 3 and 10 people they're talking to. They can only offer the job to one of them, so you have to eliminate the other 2 to 9 people, right? So what better way than to ask them a question like this? What is your weakness? If we were going to eliminate you, why would we do that? And you say, oh, well, let me tell you. Well, the first thing you need to know about me is I'm a terrible person to work with. I'm extremely moody. I take offense to practically everything that anyone does. I never get work done on time. I don't follow instructions. I have a contempt for rules in any form. And I'm allergic to working. It's only fair that you should know this if we're going to be working together, right? So you play right into this. Now, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, oh, well, thank you very much. That's a great answer to that question. And I appreciate you being so honest about it. And then they eliminate you, right? Because the other candidates, your competitors, they didn't say anything negative. They didn't reveal anything bad about themselves. So if you were the hiring manager, who would you hire? You wouldn't hire this person who just spilled their guts about everything bad that they do, right? Let's be honest. We are all not perfect, right? I say that. I believe I'm perfect, but, other people have a problem with this, and that's fine. It takes them some time. But, this is the problem with this question. That's what's actually going on. So this question is a trap. It's the ultimate trick question. And if you were to give them, hypothetically, exactly what they were looking for, it would pretty much result in you getting eliminated on the spot. So that's what we're dealing with here. Okay, let's be clear. Recruiters have a couple of goals in a job interview. One is to verify as much as possible that the material on their application, like their resume, is indeed valid. So for example, if you say you have a degree in medicine and they ask you a couple of basic medical questions in a job interview and you can't answer them, that's suspicious. That sheds some doubt on whether you really have these credentials or if there's something fishy going on, right? That's a basic goal they have. Another goal, which is what they spend most of their time on, is determining if you are a higher risk candidate. That means someone who's more likely to not work out, right? You got something wrong with you, right? Maybe you have a horrible temper. Maybe you're absolutely insufferable to work with. Maybe you have terrible communication skills and they can't get information out of you and they can't make you understand certain things that they want you to. These would all be major red flags, right? So once again, this question is sort of the king of that stuff, right? Where they're looking for risk factors. Okay, if you're the type of person that you take a job and you have a habit of quitting 2 months later, that would label you as a high-risk employee. If they hire you, you would have a higher likelihood of quitting in 2 months, right? Considering your track record. So they're looking for red flags like those, right? And this question is one of their main tools in unearthing some of that stuff, okay? So let's be clear here. A job interview is a sales pitch. You are trying to present positive reasons why they would hire you. That's the whole point, right? You don't want to give them any negative stuff because that goes contrary to that goal, right? So here they are directly asking you, what are the negatives about you, right? That's what this question is. So we have to handle it in a very diplomatic way. Okay, so let's start this here. Okay, let's get some obvious stuff out of the way first. Now, there are some people out there, and I commend them for this. Their heart's in the right place. They don't like a lot of double talk. They would rather just be honest about things. That's great. That's a great trait to have, and you should feel that way. But the problem is, in a sales pitch, you won't be very effective at selling yourself if you present a whole bunch of negatives about you when they don't know who you are. All they know is that you've got these negatives. That's not going to look very good. Okay, they're not going to pick you. So if they ask you, what are your weaknesses? And you say, well, to be honest with you, there are some days I just don't feel like working, and I actually do everything in my power to kind of goof off and not do my work, but yet make it appear that I'm working. Right? I mean, let's face it. I think all of us can probably relate to that in some way or another, but this is what you say, right? And your big reward, of course, is that they just eliminate you on the spot after they hear that, right? Okay, it's a sales pitch that we're engaged in here. Yes, you are in hell, but it is a sales pitch. So the honest answer usually doesn't work. It will usually get you eliminated. Okay? Let's get that out of the way. This is how stupid this process is. It's because these people don't know you. They're getting to know you. This is your first impression. And if the first thing that they learn about you is that you slough off work, it's probably not going to go very well. Okay? So the honest answer, the brutally honest answer, usually is a fail for this. Okay? It's stupid that it is, but it is. Okay, the next step we have to get out of the way is people like to give kiss-off answers to this question. Okay? First of all, they like to make jokes. What's your greatest weakness? What is your weakness? Oh, chocolate, right? Kryptonite, right? All these smart-ass answers that people think are hilarious, and they also seem to think that the recruiter has never heard them before, right? The recruiter is someone that does this for a living. They have done hundreds, if not thousands of interviews as their job, and they've heard it all, okay? They've heard everything. So don't make the mistake of thinking that, I'm going to give this extraordinarily clever answer that they've never heard. Yeah, it doesn't work. It's also a deflection, and they just kind of get annoyed because even though they might laugh, ha ha ha, wah ha ha, kryptonite, good one, they've heard it before, and they are not asking the question to get like a kiss off. They're asking the question to get a legitimate answer and to gauge you on that answer. Okay. What are some other things that people say? I have no weaknesses. Yeah, that doesn't work. Nobody believes that because it's not true. Everyone's got weaknesses. We all know it. And it just comes across like a deliberate, hostile deflection of the question. What are your weaknesses? I have no weaknesses. Right? It's like, yeah, right. Okay, the third thing that people do here is they pass off a strength as a weakness, right? Once again, we all know that it's false, right? If you say, I work too hard, that's my weakness, or I care too much, or, I'm just too kind to strangers, and, friendly to animals, that'll be my undoing. It doesn't work. They're not completely stupid. They understand that that's a deflection, and that's not good enough. So they would regard that as a hostile answer. Okay? It would be almost as if you said, well, my greatest weakness is I'm perfect for this role, right? It's like, yeah, that's not an answer. That's not what I'm looking for. So hopefully this frames the question properly. We have to give them something legitimate, but it doesn't eliminate you. That's why this question is a challenge. Okay? If you're interviewing beyond the absolute basic, like first job out of high school kind of thing, you have to be able to give something slightly more sophisticated to this question. Okay? So let's get to what you should say. And here it is. Something that tends to work for this question is to give a legitimate, understandable side effect of something that you do that's great. Okay? Something that people would understand because it comes hand in hand with doing something great. What does that look like? Well, think of a trade-off. Okay? The most obvious is something like speed versus quality, right? Generally, when we tend to do things fast, the quality is not quite there. Maybe the accuracy, you have to slow it down to do a really good job, right? So kind of for the quality to go up, speed goes down. For the speed to go up, quality goes down. It's a trade-off, right? Okay. There are many of these. Like think of if you're working in a job, maybe an industrial type job, think of safety versus quality, right? Or safety versus speed, maybe something like that. Like we could work fast or we could work safe. Usually they kind of go like this. If we cut every corner, we can go fast. But if we do it properly, safely, following the rules, that tends to slow us down a little bit, right? These are trade-offs, right? They go like this, right? So usually these are good to frame an answer to this question. What's your weakness? Well, I'm not the fastest worker in the place, but the quality of my work is top-notch, better than all my coworkers. Something like that. Or you could flip it over. Well, I wouldn't say I've never made a mistake, but I produce twice the volume of work than any of my coworkers. You see, it's exactly the same thing. I'm just flipping it around, whichever one best describes you, right? So to create an answer for you, think of a trade-off. Okay, you probably can think of a trade-off if you give yourself a few minutes. Something that describes you, something that you take pride in, okay? And then think of the side effect of what that does. Okay, the negative side effect. There's going to be a negative side effect to almost everything. So how do we answer, what is your weakness? Well, you give a negative side effect to something that you do that's awesome. Okay? That's the first part. So like I said, as an example, what's my greatest weakness? Oh, well, I'm not the fastest worker in the shop or in the workplace, but the accuracy of my work is among the best, right? Something like that. So I'm not the fastest, but I'm good quality, right? Now, the problem is if you leave it here, if you leave your answer here, you've still given them something that they could regard as negative. They might walk away thinking like, okay, you're not a fast worker, you're slow. So if we hire you, you're going to be a slow worker, right? That's the problem with this. You've justified being slow by saying, I might be slow, but I produce the best work of any worker in the shop. But we're still leaving them with something that could be a liability, right? So you end your answer by briefly explaining the fix for that negative element, the thing that you do that makes sure that it's never an issue. Okay? So your full answer would be something along the lines of, when they say, what is your weakness? You would say something like, well, I tend to produce very high quality work, but the reality is that takes me a little bit of extra time. So I'm not the fastest worker in the department. But what I've found is that if I take a little bit of extra, if I take this extra step at the beginning and I ask my boss for their expectations about when this work should be due and make sure that I get it in by that time, the fact that I'm not the fastest worker never becomes a problem. I always get everything in on time, everything's happy, and I produce high quality work. Something like that. You would rehearse this and make it a bit more refined. But that's the idea. So the formula is good, bad, fix. You say something awesome that you do, then you say an understandable side effect because it's a trade-off. That's your weakness. But then you say what you do to mitigate that weakness, what you do to fix it. And that's the perfect answer. Because although you've answered their question and you've revealed something specific about you and how you work, it's not something they're going to be able to eliminate you from. And you've also used this question, when you think about it, to give them two awesome things that you do, two strengths. So that's further evidence that you're a great employee and that they should hire you. You've snuck in two strengths in answering this question. But you have answered it properly. Does that make sense? So that would be my recommendation for how you answer this question.